My God, it's cold. They did warn me. They did say, make sure you bring warm clothing. It's not any better where I live in Mornington either. But it is such a special night, and I am so pleased to be here to share it with you. And thank you to Stuart and Annette for inviting me here. They have encouraged me to come for several years, but it is a difficult time for me. Yesterday, Luke would have turned 17. I always remember when winter solstice is because it was just the day after his birthday. It's 5 years since Luke was murdered. I've had a journey that I'm so thankful for on many levels, but it's incredibly bittersweet. Australian of the Year, I've just been made an officer of, now I'm an AO, an Order of Australia. I have an honorary doctorate from the University of the Sunshine Coast. I have more awards than I've ever been given. I didn't even make school prefect. I was not a good student. And I have to say, I felt really conflicted earlier because I thought, why would I get an award for the fact that my son has died? But people explained to me, it's not because of Luke's death, it's because of your reaction to his death. I set out to make sure that Luke didn't die in vain. And I guess I haven't stopped talking for nearly 5 years. People have said I can talk underwater with marbles in my mouth. But it does give me great purpose and meaning in an otherwise very empty life that I would now have without Luke. I would never have imagined that I could put one step in front of the other without Luke. And this is not an easy journey. It's not an easy journey. And I know also that Rath and Kathy, they understand what a difficult journey this is as well. But if some people can take some inspiration from the way I've chosen to live my life, then I'm pleased. I struggle with anxiety. I have struggled with PTSD. I'm affected by trauma. In my inner circle, amongst my family and close friends, I've had major meltdowns. I've screamed, I've cried, I've shouted, I've driven people away. My neighbour still doesn't speak to me. Grief is something we don't even talk about very well either. I didn't even know what was happening to me, but I felt terrible when I saw that I'd hurt people that didn't deserve to be hurt. They just didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to help me. But I could see the pity in their eyes. And I tried to keep my grief down, suppressed. I tried to be brave, but it has to come out at some point. And maybe I immersed myself so much that I couldn't feel the pain. And people would say to me, Rosie, we're worried about you. We're worried about you. You need to make time to grieve. And I would feel very frustrated, because I'd think every single day I get up and I feel pain. Every single day I'm immersed with thoughts of Luke and I feel pain. And every night I close my bedroom door, I sob myself to sleep. But when I'm out and about, I put on a brave face, a big smile. like so many of us do. And I keep my pain or my grief private. Not always, but a lot of the time. Is it because I feel ashamed? Is it because I feel to show my vulnerability is not socially acceptable? Part of me felt that if I let it out, I don't think I'd ever stop. I felt that if I fell into a pit of real grieving, I may never get out of that pit again. So I immersed myself with a lot of red wine and chain smoking. And you know what? I don't smoke anymore, just the odd one. Just the odd one. The fact that we're not allowed to smoke socially out and in people's homes and in restaurants has helped me a lot, because I feel really crap when I've had a cigarette. And I do enjoy a good wine. But you know what? It became a crutch. It became something that I could avoid the pain through. But now I like a good wine like everybody else, but it isn't a problem. I'm not on medication. I stopped anti-anxiety medication about 3 years ago. But I still struggle with anxiety. I can find myself being very abrupt, very direct, overreacting, uncontrolling. I get highly anxious when I don't know what's happening. These are things I'm learning to deal with better. I know how good it would be for me to spend more time meditating, doing yoga, and those are all the things I keep meaning that I will do, because they are good for the soul. But what I have found that I really enjoy doing, I really enjoy walking my dogs on Somers Beach. The sound of the ocean on the sand with dogs who are unconditional in their love, their loyalty. They're my family. And I find peace and tranquility there. I also have been lucky enough to be able to afford to travel. And the idea for me of travel are walking holidays. And I've been lucky to be able to do this, pushing myself physically amongst beautiful, spectacular scenery with other people who also enjoy nature and the camaraderie of walking. And it's bloody physically difficult for me. But I've got my poles and they help, especially when my knees are dodgy. And I find peace there through that physical push, where actually I find it hard to talk because I'm out of breath and I'm really struggling. So I've found what gives me peace. I've found what makes my spirit feel good. And I'm already planning my next trip, which is to Scotland, where it may be as bloody cold as it is here, and possibly a lot wetter. I have things that I look forward to. I make sure I do. I've realised that I can spend a lot of time home alone. This is an isolating journey that I have. When Luke was first killed, I thought, I've joined a club that nobody wants to join. I'm one of those mums. And I thought of the 3 little Farquharson boys that were murdered by their father when he drove into a dam. I thought of the mum, Darcy Freeman, who's the little girl that got thrown over the Westgate Bridge. And I thought, and now there's me. I'm going to have to carry this burden, this pity, this cloak for the rest of my life. How can I live with that? I'd never known anyone that had been murdered before. Least of all, someone from my family or my friends, and least of all, my own child. This was a really difficult time for my family, for my friends, for Luke's little friends. How do you make sense? How do you make sense when you're a child that you can be murdered by the father that supposedly loves you? It doesn't make any sense. And you know what? They are still struggling with that. They're 17 now. Sexual relationships, smoking marijuana, and alcohol. And I think to myself, what would Luke be putting me through now? How quickly kids grow up. How much there is to fear for their safety and the choices they may make that may not be good choices. But we all did it, and I know I did too. And I wonder what Luke would be now. How tall he would be. How deep would his voice be? Would he be struggling at school, or would he be happy to study? I realise there is so much of my life that I can never share with Luke. But I've arrived at a point, and it's taken quite some time to get here, where I do have moments of joy. I can laugh. I can appreciate good food. I value my friendships. I'm alive. But I can tell you, 3 years ago, I was in Sydney and I was rushing to an appointment. And I flung open the taxi door and a bus came past and took the door off its hinges. And as I sat on that back seat in shock, I didn't know whether I was relieved to be alive or sad that I was still here. Because you see, I didn't intend to take my life, but the pain of losing Luke was too much. And I wanted something to happen to me to stop that pain. I didn't want to take my life, but I wanted something to happen to me. I didn't think I would ever not feel pain. And now, well, I've stopped reacting to my past, and I'm looking forward to my future. I have opportunities that I'm really thankful for. I still think of Luke all of the time. And when people used to say to me, "You will never get over this," I was frightened because I thought, if I'm going to feel this pain for the rest of my life, I don't want this. But I don't think we've quite got the words right. Because you may never get over his death, but you do indeed discover a way that you can live a meaningful life with the same ups and downs as other people. There will be edited challenges, I know that. But I know that everybody's life has challenges. I once said, I know that I'm strong, but I'm not tough. But I've realised I've had to draw on every bit of strength that I had to keep going. But I didn't think there was another option. There wasn't another option. And within me has always been the determination that I will get through this somehow. And you see, I think about my life and how did I have this strength? How did I know that I could do it? And I think back to when I was a little girl and I was 6 years old when my mother died. Overnight, my mum died. It's a medical thing. It should never have happened. She left 3 children, a 6-year-old me, and my 2 younger brothers who were 4 and 1 years old. We have been affected through that trauma of her death for the rest of our lives. None of us have ever married or had a permanent relationship through fear of abandonment. And I think of that little girl who was 6, who was suddenly catapulted into a world where she just had to get on with it the best way she could as a little 6-year-old girl. And I have a stoic, strong dad. And like very many men of his generation, doesn't know how to hug, has never said I love you, and he doesn't know how to show his emotion. The only time I've ever seen him cry was at Luke's funeral. But he's a lovely, generous, kind man. And I'm glad he's my dad. And I've learnt through him and through my family what strength looks like. They've been my role models. And I had a wonderful grandmother. And my mum was the apple of her eye. She was a lovely woman, the matriarch of our family, and she lived till she was 100. She got the letter from the Queen. She lived till she was 100, and she was the most influential person in my life. Women of her generation, like all, we all have things happen, and we have to get on with it. And I think I learnt a lot from her. She lost 2 of her children, her husband, and saw her friends and family die because she outlived everybody. But she always had enthusiasm for life. She kept her marbles, as she called it, through playing Scrabble and watching quiz shows. She always had a passion and an interest in family. And I think if I can be like my grandmother, I'll do okay. So I guess for me here tonight, I usually talk about family violence. I do want to say we still have 1 woman a week being murdered in Australia, throughout the world. 1 in 3 women is affected by violence, and 1 in 4 children. It happens here in Albury, happens everywhere. It is unacceptable, and as a society and as a community, we need to stand up and call it out. Mental health issues do not cause violence. Drug and alcohol abuse does not cause violence. But they can fuel a very, very difficult situation. Luke's father was mentally ill. He was homeless. He had a marijuana addiction. But he was a violent man, and he chose violence. And what I have to live with is he chose, as the final act of power and control and ultimate act of revenge, to take Luke, to make me suffer for the rest of my life. And he's won. Suffer he has, made me. But I will not let him win. He will not ruin my life. He will not ruin my life. And I will make sure that as I continue on this planet, I will do my best to contribute in a positive way, in the best way I know how, to do my bit to make the world a better place. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.